victory and the agony of defeat.
Madison, great ball around the corner, Petticini, he beats them all! Junior Polar out wide, knocked away from Trindle, Sharks coming through, none of them can hold this!
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Tip Sheet Podcast. As always, I'm your host John, also known as 4020. Joining me is my good mate Sixties, also known as Craig. Big fella, it's time for another preview podcast. Parramatta Eels in action in round 16 across the three grades, which is, of course, NRL, New South Wales Cup, and the Jersey Flegg Cup. But before we talk football, mate, usual preamble, start by checking on how you're doing. I know it's been another tough week, but how you holding in there, mate?
Yeah, unfortunately, things aren't getting much better with Mum at the moment. Football's a nice, sort of respite. So I'm very glad of being able to do that and again, continue to be thankful for so many people who keep checking in with me. I really appreciate that. John, it's been, just back on the football. We had a really enjoyable podcast with Jim Sarantinos on Tuesday where Jim went live with us. And I must say that, he handled all those questions with aplomb. I thought it was a very informative session with him on the podcast. And that's, of course, there are certain questions that you can't really answer in the way that most fans would want an answer. Like, how do you get a direct answer about Lockie Galvin if nobody seems to know why he went at the last minute with the Bulldogs? Only Galvin's gonna tell that. And we've had a couple of other suggestions about questions that we could have asked, but we knew we had about an hour to work with, and we tried to cover as much as we could within that time frame. What I'm looking forward to, John, is because we didn't get to every question that we planned, is maybe a little way down the track we get some more time with Jim. But yeah, I just wanted to again express our thanks to Jim and the club for giving us that time with him mid-season to be able to talk about not just what's happened this season, but what lies ahead and some of the stuff that's going on behind the scenes, because it's good to hear from the CEO of an organisation, just to keep everyone up to date with that. And what I'd encourage too is we'll always try to let you know when something like that is going on. If you want to submit any questions that we can ask on your behalf, a number of people did do that this time, and we tried to weave that in to the chat. But yeah, just bear that in mind. If you've got questions that you'd like us to ask, just let us know, and we're more than happy to do so. So John, yeah, that was really good. Then, of course, we had the interesting rumour about Dylan Brown supposedly doing Achilles.
The following day. Yeah.
I mean, that was crazy. And of course, I think
he
managed.
He ended up doing a little dance for you guys at training.
Yeah. So he did a little bit of a flash pose that Jeff got a photo of and a quote. How's the Achilles, Dylan? Rock solid. It struck the pose for the photo. Yeah, look, I mean, who knows how some of the rumours happen in football. But look, it's probably why we stay away from it as much as we do, John, because
if you're chasing every rumour that pops up in football, you're not only going to be chasing your tail, you're going to end up looking like a fool. Because for every rumour that is on the money, there is a dozen that are just way off the mark.
Oh, yeah. And look, we have no shortage of rumours that are put to us. And most of the time we can generally reply and say, no, that's not true. There's the odd occasion where I'll get something sent to me, and then I'll actually contact the club and put it to them and say, look, what's the story here? And they'll often shut it down pretty quickly again. It's a rare thing that there's a rumour that tends to be correct, but I guess if you keep shooting and spraying bullets out everywhere, occasionally there might be one that hits.
Shoot, I guess. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, but anyway, John, you're doing well?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. It's I'm good in winter, but I've got a lot of people around me grumbling how brisk it is. The temperature has been dropping, but I'm in my element. I'm not too bad in winter, so I'm still rocking the sandals and shorts and doing okay. And I am wearing a hoodie, but I'm always wearing a hoodie, even in summer. I like the versatility of the clothing apparel there, but yeah, I'm doing okay, mate. And
but I don't mind the daytime shorts in winter. I tend to be the same in that regard. But man, I think I'm feeling every one of my years at the moment at night because I just can't get warm, and it's starting to. I'm thinking, and anyway, it is. Footy's a winter sport. I always look forward to the football season, so I can't grumble about a little bit of cold weather. John, before we go any further, a shout out to our sponsors, the home of the Eels, Parramatta Leagues Club, and we will be there this Sunday before the main game. I think we're slotted in about two and a bit hours before the main game, so I think we're on about 3:45, something like that. We'll confirm that on our socials, but again, you'll find us in Sturlo's before the big game, and we look forward to seeing you there as we go through the preview. Also, Star Partners Real Estate, Auburn, Narellan, and Parramatta, and they, as you said the other day, John, they're the OG of our sponsors. And of course, if anyone wants to get on board as a sponsor, just reach out to us, because don't worry about what time of the season it is, because if you jump on as a sponsor, you jump on 12 months. That'll take you from now until the same time next year, and just keep rolling it over. And if anyone wants to jump on board as supporting individually, we do have Patreon there. So you just click the link that's there on the website, and you'll be able to help us out in that regard. It is always much appreciated. John, 3 games, 3 grades. And we've also got a couple of trial games too that we should touch on.
So we will mention that at the back end of the podcast. But we do kick off in the Jersey Flegg because the doubleheader at CommBank is on Sunday. But the Flegg are playing on Saturday in action out at Kellyville Park against the Newcastle Knights. Parramatta Eels in 4th, hosting the 11th place Newcastle Knights. And for the Eels, I'd say a fair bit of stability in this team. 60s are coming off the back of an upset loss to the Warriors last round, looking to now bounce back against the Novocastrians. And the Eels shape up like this. At fullback, we have Jaden Ambici. Cameron Bamwood out this week. Not sure why. Again, with the Flegg 60s, we are sort of beholden to a lack of information about suspensions and injuries. So if we do see an injury, we can sort of report on it sometimes. But sometimes the player's got a niggle that we don't pick up in the game and don't know if Bamwood's injured, suspended, or out via form. And I don't think it's form, mate, but it could be one of the other 2 factors. But on the wings, you've got Dakota Kakoi and Bradley Avery. Tavaka Palu and Antioch Vitala Mariner are in the centres. Good to see Tavaka back. Missed a couple of games in the last 2 rounds, and he's been very good in the centres for the Parramatta Eels. The halves pairing is Lorenzo Talatina and Joshua Lynn. Jim Sarantinos broke that fantastic bit of news about Lorenzo 60s being signed up by the Eels for the next few years. Didn't get specific in the details, but he did say long-term, which is fantastic because Lorenzo's looked very good in this grade, despite being...
so it's either 27 or 28.
Yeah.
So
real good news there for the Parramatta Eels. And he partners Joshua Lynn. In the front row, we've got Damascus Nemia, Jack Hudson and Tiankan Brown. Very good trio there from the 8, 9 and 10. Back row, your guy there, Dom Lestratus, having a great season. Continues to work on the edges, and he'll play opposite of William Lewis, who's the other edge forward. Comes back down to this grade alongside Damascus, having played in the New South Wales Cup last week. And then locking the forward pack is Yeti Samuelu. On the interchange, you've got Patrick Spence, Tom Summer, Ryder Talangi, and Bo Lucian. Trace Beattie, the 18th man or the concussion substitute, and the most recent SG Ball graduate to sort of feature in that Flegg squad. There's been a whole lot of them. and Trace is the next one off the next cab off the rank in that regard. They're taking on the Newcastle Knights 60s, who I mentioned in 11th place coming to this one. Did these two teams meet a few weeks back, or was it in the Cup, or was it both? Jersey Flegg.
I've got a feeling they did meet, but
Parramatta Eels took on Newcastle there. No, it must have just been the New South Wales Cup, who won 30-10, I think, in that game. Because I'm just going back through here, and no, this is the first meeting between the two squads. It looks like.
Okay, there you go.
So I am in Jersey Flegg, right? I am Jersey Flegg, Parramatta Eels. Yeah, they have not met this season. So let me have a quick gander at this Newcastle team. Anyone we would recognise? Not really. Taj Moore, I do know from the Pathways. Yeah, a lot of their advanced talent is playing up in New South Wales Cup or even the NRL now, 60. So Eels not meeting a lot of their Pathways rivals, I suppose, in this squad.
Yeah. So, John, look, last week I thought was close to the Jersey Flegg's worst performance of the season.
Yeah.
And it was, I mean, we talk about every week those errors that cause that change of momentum in a game. And the Eels have been guilty of that in almost every game this season, where there'll be a period in the game where they'll knock on from the kickoff, or there'll be a mistake where they don't complete the set after points. And it is often costly, because at that point there's normally been like a 2 or 3 game run of 2 or 3 tries on the trot, that the loss of momentum just impacts. Last week, I think it was quite similar circumstances, but they didn't have it in them to be able to overcome it.
Yeah.
And whilst they've overcome those moments each week, there were just too many of them last week. There were too much turnover of possession. And I don't know whether we reached that tipping point last week, John, where there were a number of changes that had happened to the team, and it just felt like, it almost felt like it was an inevitable loss, even though the game was still there to be won. It was just, look, I was struggling to find someone that I would say was a standout in that game in a beaten team. It was just one of those games. I have to put it down as one of those games. So if we go back to the form before then, obviously their high placing on the ladder tells you that the Eels have been going well.
Yeah, they've been one of the best teams in the competition, no doubt. And in a game-for-game basis, they can take anyone. But like you said, they won against Manly the week before that lost to the Warriors, but that was a bit of a shaky win too. A lot of points scored and conceded. They haven't been trending downwards, but they've been trending towards this junction, haven't they? Where, like you said, they've been bleeding personnel up to the New South Wales Cup, out via injury, taking a break.
Or just even some rotations
and rotation, exactly. And that there is absolutely a tipping point there, like you said, where that can sort of not derail the team, but it can hurt your ability to close out games. And we saw that against the Warriors, who played above their ladder position on that game too. They played a good brand of football, took advantage of their opportunities, and caught the Eels out. So we're not saying it's panic stations here in the Jersey Flegg. Jordan Rankin and the boys having a fantastic season, but they do need to get over the sort of the plateau, the hump, don't they, that they find themselves on here. And
yes,
yeah, good chance here against the Novocastrians. Newcastle come into this game in 11th. If I just pull up their recent form in the Jersey Flegg for the Knights, they come into the Kellyville clash on Saturday with a narrow loss against the Roosters. They went down 30-28. A narrow loss against the Seagulls, who the Eels met a couple of weeks back in that back-to-back set of games, actually. They played mainly in the bizarre catch-up game. Not bizarre, because that was meant to happen, but to go catch-up game into actual regulation game was a bit odd. But Seagulls beat them 24-18, got done by the Dragons 36-26, and then they just beat the Panthers coming out of their own bye. So they're on a bit of a losing streak here. And the Eels don't want to be the team that allows them to snap back into the winners column. But yeah, some opposition we've seen there recently: the Roosters, the Seagulls. I think we played the Dragons a while back, but Parramatta matched up pretty well against those teams. And again, you always got to be careful about the powers of transitive property when it comes to sport. You can't just say because X team beat Y team, Z team's going to beat Y team as well.
It's folly, especially in the lower grades.
Where exactly where things can be a lot more volatile because they're not full-time athletes, even though they are pursuing a career there. They're not NRL full-time, where Monday to Friday is just locked in for preparation.
John, I'm really looking forward to Tavaka Palu being back in the team.
That is a big in. He's been fantastic for the Eels in the centres. Big, powerful option down the left edge. Had really locked up that centre position and just got nicked up, it looks like, for the last couple of weeks because he was a late withdrawal from, was it the Roosters game, 60s? He pulled out the Roosters game ahead of kickoff, I think, and then missed that game in the Warriors game.
I believe so. But of course, the other thing too, John, when I look at this team, the forwards have that capacity to be really, really dominant. And if you look at the starting pack, that's a very strong starting pack that's named there. And then you look at the bench now, apart from Paddy Spence, who's a very experienced campaigner at this level, and has that capacity to be he's not just a dummy half. He could fill in a couple of backline positions as well as, I think last week he was playing lock. I think the last minute change, I think it was last week. Don't think it was the week before, but there was a last minute change, and
because
he went from being and in fact, I believe even from the team when Teamless Tuesday was named on, I think he might have been on the bench. He was actually then meant to start as dummy half, but he ended up starting as lock in that game. But apart from Paddy, you've got Tom Summer, Ryder Talangi, Bo Lucian. So you're looking at three of the middles that have come up from the SG ball. And I'm glad to see those players, well, Tom and Ryder, get some back-to-back games because, look, I reckon Tom settled in really well.
Yeah, he seems to have locked down a position on that bench now, and a bit of a rugged middle forward, has the ability to bump through contact and find an offload, and he's been good.
And then Ryder, last week was Ryder's, was that his first game last week?
Or was it his second?
Or was his second?
I think it might have been
anyway,
second.
One of the things looking at Ryder is you realise how much bigger he's got in the last
just through
12 months or so.
Even through the year, mate, from SG ball to now, he's gotten bigger, just growing.
Like he's a physical presence with players who are 3 years older than him. So, I'm glad to see that. And, of course, Bo Lucian, I thought, had a very solid SG ball season. So seeing him get his opportunity as well is terrific. You have to go for the Eels in this one, but I really want the forwards to assert their dominance, and I want to see errors minimised, and I want us to absolutely see the set after points completed. Get to that kick.
God. Yeah. The elementary errors we've had off kickoffs after points has been very frustrating, and it's something you've raised on the podcast recently. But I look at this team. I look to the front row, Nemia and Brown. They've really been tone setters there. I think that they're going to be key on getting the Eels onto the front foot here. The man of the moment, Lorenzo, who came so close to taking over that game against the Warriors 60s. He really brought the Eels to life in that final quarter and couldn't quite get us back into it all the way. But he's been really good in Jersey Flegg, and I think he's just going to continue to grow, and he's got a lot to play for. Obviously, a Parramatta Eel for upcoming years, but how high can he go this year? It's going to be really fun to watch his progress, and I think this is a great chance for him to impose himself on the Newcastle Knights. Maybe he's going to be extra fired up. Got overlooked for the New South Wales 19s. Really unlucky not to be selected there. And again, that's not a disrespect to the two halves picked over him in Woods and Rodwell, who are both fantastic talents, and you can make a very strong case for them there. But the fact that he's not even in the 17 as a utility, where he's shown he can play a utility role for the Parramatta Eels out of dummy half as well as in the halves. Yeah, hopefully he can have a big game and sort of stick it to the selectors.
And of course, our best wishes to Josiah Funauta, who's playing tonight in that under-19s game.
Yeah, by the time you watch this, will probably be Friday, so this will be in the past. But best of luck to Josiah, who is very much a worthy selection for the New South Wales Blues and should have a big game there against the Cane Toads. So yeah, we're looking for the Parramatta Eels to win this 160s, have a big bounce back victory. Maybe not big score, but I think a comprehensive victory over Newcastle. Get back to fundamentals, control the ball, minimise those errors that have been happening at critical junctions in the game. And we saw last week it was the butchered try where 3 Parramatta Eels dived on the bobbled bomb from the Warriors, and that ended up resulting in a 12-point swing. I think this week they lock it in.
And we should mention as well that Jersey Flegg game is the first of a triple header at Kellyville on Saturday.
A lot happening, mate. Tell us.
Yeah, and that's that big community opening up at Kellyville. I'm trying to think of the exact name that they...
Jubilee. It's like a... What have they called? Let me have a hunt around on the website and see if they've got a event day guide, Parramatta Eels Welcome Day.
Yeah, there you go, Welcome Day. So Community Welcome Day. So get up there because that's the first of the triple header, and they will also have the Harvey Norman Women's Premiership team playing a trial against the Bulldogs and the NRLW team playing a trial against the Bulldogs. They are the latter two games. This first one will give you coverage on TCT. With that, look to also maybe give you coverage on the other two trials on Saturday.
At the very least, you'll be taking some cliff
John,
notes.
I'll definitely be up there on Saturday for that open day. Looking forward to it.
And just to clarify, Flegg at 1 o'clock, we just mentioned that, but 3:45 for the Harvey Norman's Women's Premiership trial, and then 6 o'clock for the NRLW trial. So it's a big day, Kellyville, if you want to get out there for that triple header. And then there's event activities include face painting, some pass and kicking games for the kids, raffles and giveaways. Get to meet the beloved Eels mascot. Be interested to see which version of Sparky and Sparkette turn up. Not to be controversial. the tackle safe.
No, there's only one Sparky and Sparkles, but there's also, and I'm trying to think of the names of the other
the tackle
mascots.
safe. Yeah, the tackle safe mascots that caused the big stir earlier this year. And for those that want to dabble and spend a few dollars, the official store will also be open for your merchandise needs. Just looking at the club notes here. And there's a ton of transport options there. So if you need to,
did they say the cafe's open too?
Yes, the kiosk and Paradise Cafe will be open.
I have to recommend Paradise Cafe as well, because not only are the coffees superb, but they do have a nice array of sandwiches and rolls and things like that. So it's just an option as well beside the kiosks. So and then you can go maybe even watch the games from the balcony outside the cafe. So although you probably have to make sure you get there early for claiming your spot there.
Yes. But for all the full details, go to paraeels.com.au, guys. They've got a comprehensive post there that explains transport, parking, merchandise opportunities, how you can connect with the club as well. So a lot happening there. 60s, where are we going to next, mate?
New South Wales Cup, mate.
There we go. A bit of common sense progression. And we go to reserve grade here, where the Parramatta Eels will meet the Novocastrians once again. This one, 3:45 p.m. kickoff out at Combank Stadium. So we've got the offset schedule here, the double header for the Flegg and the Cup on different days. But the double header at Combank between the Knights and then the Titans following it up. So in the Cup here, Eels 3:45 p.m, 3:45, kicking off against Newcastle. 3v13 here, similar to what we saw in the Flegg. Eels inside the top four. Newcastle sort of languishing down the lower parts of the ladder. Eels, though, geez, this grade has been hit by some injuries, some suspensions, some promotions to the NRL, mate. They're doing it tough right now, and continues this week with a backline that does not resemble what we've really been seeing throughout the majority of the season. Title, the young talent there at fullback, but on the wings you've got Liam Scolari and Samuel Luizu going back to the wing this week, Bo Newlands and Araz Nava in the centres. So, look, Araz and Luizu have been mainstays of the backline 60s, but Arpa, a young player, has been a part of his team, no doubt, and really encouraging, but we're seeing some real depth being tested here. Scolari and Newlands coming up from the Ron Massey Cup. Eels preferring to use those options over some of the younger guys in the Flegg. We can talk about that later if you want. But the back line's certainly been hit by injuries and suspensions. Matthew Hunter, another young prospect, he'll partner Ronald Volkman in the halves because Dean Hawkins has been called up to the NRL in light of that Mitchell Moses injury. We're going to have to wait and see what's happening here. Ryan Madison named to play prop, also on the injury report with an undisclosed spinal injury. No idea what's happening there, mate. We have to wait till game day for that one. But provisionally named the play in the front row alongside Tony Mattielli, who returns from suspension. Joey Lussick is the starting dummy half. Tyrese Lakini gets another nod here to back up in this grade. He'll play on the edges here, with Dan Kidd, the captain, on the opposite side of the field. Chai Geimer is a lock forward. Then on the interchange, you've got Brendan Hands, Brock Parker, Saxon Pryke, and Kane Kalachi. And then taking on the Newcastle Knights, who've got plenty of players we recognise here. Connor Vitano is one of those young representative players. Tyson Gamble, experienced NRL player there. Jack Heverington, the wild card. Matthew Arthur. Tyrone Thompson, younger twin brother of Leo Thompson. And then Jacob Davis, former Newcastle turned Parramatta turned Newcastle player. Who else we got there? Cody Hopwood, another young talent there who I think has played for the New South Wales 19s. He might be playing for the 19s this year. So a lot happening there for Newcastle. Again, we met them a few weeks ago. I think we won 30-10, as I said earlier in the podcast. A team that we were quite wary of in terms of their ladder seeding 60s relative to what we'd seen in the roster there. When we played them back then, they also had Jackson Hastings partnering Tyson Gamble, which was a crazy experience cup pairing in the halves. Obviously, Hastings has now earned a recall, so hell has frozen over at Newcastle. But the Eels, they are banged up, suspended up. I don't know how you can phrase this, but their resources for a team as deep as it has been this year in the cup, they are being stretched perilously thin right now. And Kalis got his boys up for a pretty good contest against the Warriors last week. They got run out at the end. For how understrength they were, and the commentary I think sort of overplayed how understrength the Warriors were because they were missing 2 or 3 players. The Eels were missing half their team, easily half their team last week, and made it a real physical contest for about 3/4 of that game. Yeah, they got run out by the best team in the competition, but they can hold their heads up high, and I hope they bring that same energy this week against Newcastle because they win the game this week if they play with that same conviction and courage that they showed against the Warriors.
Yeah, absolutely. You had, I thought, so many players that were playing above themselves last week. And, we had that. You can still see the absences are there in the back line. They're still there. And now we've had a few returning forwards into the team. We see Ronald Volkman included in the team. He didn't play last week. So, John, or did he? Did Ronald?
No, they pulled Volkman at kickoff. It was Hawkins and Volkman. I'm just looking here. The halves were Brendan Hands and Matthew Hunter.
That's right. Yeah, it was Brendan Hands playing in the halves. So that's because I was thinking the intercept, but that was the week before against the Roosters. Yeah. So it starts to blend. The games
do start to blur when you're this deep into the season with so many grades.
Look, it's obviously the pack looks stronger this week. The starting props last week, who I think did an absolutely tremendous job with Kane Kalachi and Brock Parker.
They did a very good job, honestly. They
now
tough.
Both of those players are coming off the bench this week because we've got Tony Mattielli returning from suspension. But as you said, John, that question mark about what's happening with Matto.
Yeah. Listed on the injury report.
Yeah.
It was listed as a spinal injury too, so you can't imagine him playing. But I don't know, was it a clerical error? Was it a minor injury that they're getting more information on?
Maybe it was something where, it was being monitored, or whether there was some scans or something like that was having to be done that they just weren't taking. They're just not going to take the risk of naming him in NRL if he can't play.
But no Richie Penasini because he's got a hand injury. We're waiting on a prognosis there or an outlook there. It's
isn't it interesting because the rumours were that that Richie was perhaps going to make his NRL debut.
That was again, we sort of speak towards the idea of chasing those rumours and you end up chasing your tail. There was
Yeah.
a bit of a social media chatter about Penasini making his debut for the Eels this week. Turns out he was just injured, which is really unfortunate because he's been building nicely this year. But yeah, you look at that Parramatta Eels injury report and you can see why Cup is being stretched though. Moses out, Moretti out, Penasini out, Simonson out, Tuivasa out, Madison, who knows, Tungo out, Latu out, Arthur Miller-Stephen, who would have been another core player in that backline, out. They're battling, mate. They have been ravaged. And alongside that, we had, as you mentioned, Tony Mattelli returning from suspension, alongside Wiremu Greg, who was also suspended from that same game against the Seagulls. I can't remember which one it was. It's been a tough run, and Kalis, to his credit, has been getting results out of his team, regardless of the personnel available. But yeah, they're getting stretched real thin now, and I think this is a good chance for him to not right the ship, but just get back on track. A couple of really tough games recently. They take on the Knights now, who do have that talent. You look at that roster and you see the guys that can make a difference. But I think that the Eels could still get it done. The benefits of playing at CommBank in front of a bit of a crowd there on Sunday should help. But I suppose the talking point for me here is you look at that back line, and they've opted to go with some of those RMC guys in Scolari and Newlands, who they put their hands up last week and tried. Should they be going for some of the Flegg guys? Or you look at that Flegg back line and, Muhammad Al-Madine's not there. Dom Farouja's not there. A couple of those other options. We don't know their status too. So maybe they're out of commission right now and you're pulling up a Bradley Avery, and what else is there left in the Flegg stocks? I don't know. What's your take on that one, mate?
Yeah, I reckon they're really tough calls because they've been calling on Flegg players for,
as much as they
here
can.
and there.
Yeah.
But if you have a look at how many they'd want to call up, if they replaced all of the missing players with Flegg players rather than Ron Massey players from Wenty or wherever, and you'd think to yourself, geez, that'd really leave things stretched at a Flegg level. So I guess it's a juggling act that Nathan Kalis has to do there. If the job's getting done, you can't criticise him. And for the most part, the job is being done with those decisions to bring in the Ron Massey Cup level players. And really, someone like Samuel Luizio, for example, he's been getting his name listed on the extended bench for the NRL this season. And it comes back to that old saying, John, the best ability is availability. And Samuel's probably having his best season in terms of availability.
Those things tend to line up, don't they? Like players getting into their best seasons, when you're able to get onto the field and produce, it helps a lot.
Well, someone like him's still only 22.
Yeah.
So you have to think, well, maybe he's still got a little bit of a future at the club because he's certainly finishing well.
Featuring in those NRL team lists too. Being part of the extended bench for a number of weeks now, including this week, I believe. So being one of the real great stories this year is seeing Samuel be able to find his best form again and maybe form that we hadn't seen in senior football, at least because of a lack of availability. And he's been very good. It's been a great story.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, John, I think it's still going to be a tough ask for the Eels this week, just simply based on those numbers of missing players. That injury report is extensive.
Yeah, and we're not even looking at the actual cup injuries too that don't get reported.
No, because it does extend, down into the players who aren't in the full-time squad but have been part of either pre-season training or part of the plans for New South Wales Cup that just aren't available. So, look, I'm going to tip the Eels, but it's really a case of the forwards having to get that job done.
I think you look at the forwards, and there could be a reshuffle on game day of Ryan Madison, which would then bring in, I imagine, probably Kalachi, but maybe Parker. It's a coin between those two, and then the promotion of someone else who knows from Flegg or RMC. But you look at whoever's in the forward pack, Tony Mattelli, Dan Keir, Charlie Geimer, they need to put their hands up. And then the other player I think that really needs to take control of the game is Ronald Volkman. I think for the Eels to win this one, given the inexperience and the spine around him between the 6 and the 1 there, And not to say that Arpa Twite or Matthew Hunter aren't talented prospects. They've done some great stuff this year, but you need Ronald Volkman to be the man. And I think you need him to take control, kicking, organising, distribution, and take as much as he can from whatever Newcastle give him.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So, John, that pretty much brings us to the main game. I think we'll go with that. We'll touch on the trial games just a little bit, but the main game is the Eels against the Titans, and it's a weakened Eels team with the absence of both our halves this week. But I'll let you run through both of the teams.
Yeah, so both teams impacted by State of Origin this round, and I think the Titans, they've got a few concerns coming out of the game on Wednesday night too. But for them, they've got AJ Brimson, who had a fantastic game against the Manly Seagulls last week at fullback. I think he's probably their best fullback option, but he's being shuffled around the team sort of year in, year out, round in, round out. Obviously made of glass as well, which doesn't help, but he had a great game last week and hopefully doesn't back that up. But on the wings, they've got the speeds that Elafiana Khan-Pereira and then Alan Fitzgibbon. Jojo Fafita returns this week and he goes into the centres with Philip Sami on the opposite side of the field. Sami, a bit of an instigator who likes a big game against Parramatta too, so got to keep an eye out on him. In the halves, Kieran Foran captains the team and he works alongside Jaden Campbell, who has the 7 on his back. Jamin Jolliffe, Sam Verrills, and the former Eel Reagan Campbell-Gillard in the front row. Been a tough year for Reg up in the Gold Coast 60s, but I'm honestly expecting him to bring his best this week. I think he'll be up for a big, big game. So I've got to try and limit his impact through the middle. In the back row, they've got Chris Randall and Beau Fermor. Cleese Haas is a lock forward. On the interchange, excuse me if I get any of these wrong, fellas, but you got Jacob Alec Wainke. Sorry, Jacob, I got that one wrong. Then the two Fa'asul Mala Awi boys, Isaac and Tino, alongside Moeki Fotuaika. Dave Fafita, the reserve there, with Tukamihia Simpkins, Sean Mullaney, Tom Weaver, and Brian Kelly, the other extended options. But the big one here out of Origin 60s, I don't know if you saw the report, Tino Fa'asul Mala Awi carried a sternum injury into Origin, I believe, and there was some speculation that he had to get needled up to play and has sort of come out of the game not too great. And there's a good chance he either has a minimal role in this game or may even be rested, which would be a pretty notable change to the Gold Coast Titans lineup.
So would they just bring Fafita in for him?
Well, who knows where his status is with him butting heads of Des Hasler, the coach there. But I would say he would be a prime option. Simpkins could be another guy too. I'd say between those two, if you're looking for someone to replace a big body there, because Simpkins is obviously a big unit there, 192, 105. But be one of those two, but I don't know what the situation is between Fafita and Hasler, because that's been very volatile. But that is where the Titans stand, mate. And for the Parramatta Eels, well, you mentioned it, there's been some seismic changes this week because of injury and suspension. But at fullback, thankfully, he is available. Azara Yongi, who's having a great season. Jim Sarantinos gave him a bit of a tip of the hat in our podcast, and Azara has been awesome. Zach Lomax is scheduled to back up. He pulled through unscathed in terms of injury from Origin, I believe. There was some concern about a charge he could have copped for the incident involving the elbow of Trent Loiero, but he got a fine for that, I believe. So
yes, that's
able to play without any concern there. He'll be on the right wing with Josh Adokar on the left wing. Will Penasini working the right edge in centres with Sean Russell on the opposite side of the field in the same position. In the halves, though, this is where it gets real spicy. Joash Papalii getting the first chance to impress. He's got push his claims to replace Dylan Brown next year for the Parramatta Eels. And then he'll work alongside Dean Hawkins, who is in the 7. Returning from his last foray into the NRL, we had a career-high 4 try assist against the Seagulls. So no pressure, Dean. Just emulate your career best, please, mate. But he's been very good for the Eels. Very good for the Eels working in relief of Mitchell Moses. And unfortunately, that calf injury for Mitch has sort of opened the doors for Dean to step in for another 2 or 3 games. Hopefully just that much. And that's not a slight on Dean, but again, how much Moses has held in esteem at the club. In the front row, though, it's Jack Williams, Rawi Smith, and Junior Barlow, who has the C next to his name this week with no Moses. Looking for a big game out of Junior as he meets his former running mate there in Reg. Kelma Tuolangi will start on the right edge, Gideon Katonga on the left edge, Jermaine Hopgood at lock forward, Dylan Walker, Matt Dury, Wiramu Greg, and Jordan Samrani on the interchange. We spoke about Wiramu's inclusion on Team List Tuesday 60s. We can touch on it again if you want. Well, that is a spicy selection there, but maybe also a reflection of how hurt our playing stocks are right now too. But the extended roster, Joey Lussick, Charlie Guymer, Dan Keir, Ronald Volkman, and Samuel Owizu. Jason Rolls, of course, is the coach. We've got Gerard Sutton as the main man, Liam Kennedy in the box. So probably a neutral drawing on the officials, which is, I suppose, as much as you can ask for these days, given some of the other matchups that we've had underneath certain officials. But yeah, the Eels coming out of the bye. And this one's interesting because how teams respond to a coach out of the bye is, I wouldn't say it's like the most telling thing, but it is one of the most interesting things for me, is how a coach can manage a team over the bye, over the time off, when you have a chance to reset and refocus, regroup. Some teams are sluggish. Some teams come roaring out. What the Parramatta Eels look like out of a bye under Jason Ryle's 60s?
Yeah, well, I guess, as you say, we're going to find out a little bit more about that. It's, it's not our first bye of the season. How did we go coming out of the last bye? Was that I'm just trying to think which game that was.
It was round 8. We took on the Cronulla Sharks up at Suncorp.
Yeah.
Didn't play bad football.
No.
But
we didn't get the result. John, I would love to have been at training and been able to have an informed insight with this.
But
I might see if I can get. Yeah. I might see if I can get to at least the captain's run before the game, but that doesn't help with any insights here. What I will say is that the Eels, I think they needed a little bit of a break. I don't think it's gone astray having that time off. What we do know is that given that the team list last week for the New South Wales Cup, that there was more than just the NRL, likely NRL team that was given a bit of time away. It seemed like it was more of a squad resting than anything else looking at it. But John, let's start off with what you mentioned before, Wiramu Greg. So this is his opportunity. You don't get to sell yourself either to your current club or to any other bidders by running around in New South Wales Cup. So regardless of whatever circumstances has Woody in first grade this week, you'd think that motivation, that incentive is there just purely on being given that opportunity to showcase your wares in first grade. Next thing that I want to push at is the crowd. This is a bastard of a day and time to stage an NRL game, especially where you've got the two teams down near the bottom of the ladder. Like, why? And I know it was set earlier in the year, but like a 6:15 Sunday
Blind Freddy
game
could have told
in
you
the middle
that
of winter.
Titans in the middle of winter at 6:15 on Sunday is not going to be conducive to any sort of crowd roll-up, regardless of how good or bad the Parramatta Eels are going. It is purely a TV ratings thing.
I really do implore as many Eels supporters as can possibly get there to turn up and get behind the team, because this is a critical game on quite a few levels. First of all, obviously, we're playing without some key members of the team. And we've come out of a string of matches where the Eels have got incredibly close and they've really competed in matches, and with a bit of luck or some half-decent officiating might have got one or two decisions, one or two matches go their way. This week, the likelihood is, and I don't like seeing it because, we'll be there, but I don't like to see such an empty stadium that we're likely to have on a Sunday night in the middle of winter. Like, Sunday, 6:15, the middle of winter, come on. Like, seriously, come on.
Who are you kidding? Exactly. Yeah, who are you kidding?
And I know they're trying to, they'll try to fit games in around Origin being played on Wednesday, and then also the 19s Origin that's being played tonight. But there are alternatives, surely. Anyway, I do implore as many Eels supporters as possible to get out there, get behind the team, because we want to create some sort of atmosphere for the boys to play in front of for a start. Okay, so I've mentioned Woody. I've mentioned the crowd, because I think the crowd can provide a little bit of impetus for the team. Looking at what we've got there, as you mentioned before, Dean Hawkins had a career best game in his last performance. Joash Papalii, in what I've seen him do at training throughout the season up to now, on those odd occasions where he's filled in at 5'8", I've thought he looked really, really good. Of course, it's a big step up to have your first
that
game.
Disclaimer there, but
that first game at 5'8" in first grade, because he hasn't been playing in that position in New South Wales Cup. He's had a taste of it, but he's being asked to make that position his own for this week. And I think he's a confident young bloke. I think on what I've seen, he can get the job done. And I think he's got a good, steady and composed half alongside him in Dean Hawkins. So I'll back him to get the job done this week. So let's look at the rest of the team. We obviously want to see the best from Will Penasini this week. For the large part of the year, it's been missing, and he'd acknowledge that himself. Sean Russell's probably having his best season of football. He's been ultra reliable, especially defensively, John, and the high kicks. How well has he gone fielding those that have come his way? But again, and it's going to sound boring because I've said it with every grade this week, but it's a truism in rugby league. We need the forwards to get the job done. And again, I am going to do a little finger pointing here, because we need to see the best possible version of Jermaine Hopgood this week.
Yeah.
The best possible version. Because I don't think it's ideal for a start that we've got Jack Williams starting as prop, because his best football is played on an edge. But we're down in troops, and he's having to start off in the middle. And as I said, it's not his best position there. We've got players that haven't had much game time on the bench. Matt Dury hasn't had much game time this year in first grade. He's been selected. He's had some minutes out there. He's looked pretty good in some of those minutes. But those minutes haven't been big. We mentioned Woody before. And Jordan Samrani is really transitioning from being a back into being a back rower. So we've got that issue of inexperience that's still there within the team. So I need blokes like Jermaine Hopgood, who has been selected at Origin level, to be giving us his best possible version. You haven't been happy with him lately, John, because of the errors. I know a lot of supporters haven't been happy with those errors, but we know what he's capable of. Take out those errors. Defensively, he's been an absolute workhorse for the team, and he's making a lot of tackles with very few misses at all. But we can't have those errors. We just can't have those errors. So to me, he's really key, because if we present opportunities on the back of errors from some of our more experienced players, that's starting to hand the game to the opponents.
Yep.
And the Titans proved last week that they can score tries. And if you look at their team, any team that has Brimson, Khan Pereira, I've always liked Jojo Fafita.
Philip sounds pretty handy as well as an attacking player. They've got a great back line. Their forward pack's a bit weaker at the moment, especially if Tino's out. But the Titans' ability to score points has never been a question, has it? Regardless of who's coaching, regardless of what iteration they've been, they love playing sort of open, aggressive football. Like if the game breaks down a bit and gets open and sloppy, that's where they'll thrive. And the Eels have to be very disciplined in that regard.
One of the things, John, that was always a concern for me when we took on the Titans was trying to play the football too open, almost trying to play it like touch football.
Yep.
I believe against someone like the Titans, you've got to bash them out of the game. You've got to take a very direct approach to them rather than engaging them in a softer touch footy version of the game. And we've made that sort of mistake at different times in the past. Sometimes we've squeezed out of it, but it's never been, when we play like that against the Titans, I'm never comfortable watching it because I'm always thinking we're one error away from the Titans going on a run of tries. But, John, for this week, the sort of football that we're playing, what was the terminology that was used by Jim Sarantinos, the Eels' philosophy this year? Fight?
Yeah, he had it was actually, funnily, it was not 1-to-1, but it had the same sort of energy as Papalii, Franklin Papalii, sorry.
Pele. You talked about
Joash's father
about adding value.
Adding value, sort of. It was that same sort of energy where Jim came in and was talking about fighting and competing and sort of just getting your hands dirty for the sake of the team. And the Titans are the sort of squad where if you do that, you're going to be 3 feet forwards in terms of victory. You're going to be steps ahead of them by some margin. And I think the Eels bring that energy, the energy that they've had in recent weeks against the Bulldogs, against Cronulla, and against a few other teams where didn't get the wins in those games, but they rolled their sleeves up and had a real red-hot crack. I think the Titans won't be able to go with them even without Mitchell Moses and Dylan Brown.
Yeah, and that's what we've got to do. We've got to take the fight to them. We really have to take the fight to them and be relentless with it. Don't get into – I mean, we saw what was against the Dolphins where it was just too lateral. It was just too lateral right from the start. And to me, there's aspects of the Titans that aren't too dissimilar to the Dolphins in that regard. If you engage them in a game of touch footy, you do so at your own peril because of the sort of players. If you're playing touch footy against a team that has the hammer in there or Farnworth, Herbie Farnworth, do so at your own peril. And unfortunately, those two players became instrumental when the Dolphins just got over the top of us back then. And when you think what the Dolphins are doing now to quality opponents, and then you think the Eels came so close to winning that, should have won it, were the better team for most of the game, even allowing for the fact they went too lateral. Let's not go lateral against the Titans. Let's take the fight to them. Let's get over the top of them and play some classic rugby league. Forwards win the battle, backs finish the job. Yep. So, John, I think it's probably time for our predictions on the game, and then we'll quickly touch on the girls. We've got some representatives in the girls' 19s Origin tonight, and we've also got the women's trials on the weekend. I just want to touch on them quickly. Right. So your first try scorer for the Eels, the score, and your predicted best on field.
First try scorer going for the man in the spotlight this week, Joash Papalii. Hopefully he can spark something and either score the first try or help set it up. The best on field, it's a bit cliche, but that head-to-head matchup between the two bookends there in the 10. I got the Roman X on their backs, or the 1-0 as it were in our alphanumerical language. Junior Barlow up against his old running mate, Reagan Campbell-Gillard. The Junior's been great for the Eels this year, and it feels unfair to keep demanding more and more from him, but I think that they just need another huge game from him. it could go to a number of players too, a Yongi, Lomax. You mentioned Will Penasini, 60s. I think you want to see a big game out of him, but so much of what this team can do or needs to do will come off the platform that Junior can lay. And, yeah, I sort of look towards him to be the big leader without Mitchell Moses here. And then Eels in the final result, if they can play the football we're talking about being tough and gritty and not falling into the trap of getting sideways against the Titans and sort of turning the ball over in the midfield and giving them the opportunity to set the tone with their dynamic backline, I think the Eels can win this one pretty solidly by about 10 to 12 points. I will go Parramatta 26, the Titans 14.
Okay, that sounds like I won't say it's conservative. You might say it's a realistic tip this week on that one, John. I think the Eels can get the job done by a similar sort of margin myself. I think it's a 12 to 14 point game for the Eels. It might be a few more points. I think it might be in the vicinity of 36-24. With that, if the weather stays dry, I think we're heading in that direction. My first try scorer for the Eels, I'm going to go with Yongi to get the job done there. And as for my predicted bet on field, I think I'll double up with Yongi again there. I think this could be the sort of game where he has a statement performance playing off the back of hopefully a bit of dominance set through the middle. So that's my tip, John. Now, we've got tonight, we already touched on the boys game with the 19s Origin, but we've also got the girls there tonight. And the Eels have 5 players that are taking part in the game. And we've got, do you have those handy, John? I've just,
so I'll run through.
I know Gray's in it.
I'll run through the 2 squads and the positions. But yeah, the Eels plays featuring in this match at 5:45 p.m. Taking part in Queensland this year, because it was at Leichhardt last year. It's on the Sunshine Coast Stadium, Sunshine Coast, funnily enough. You can catch it on 9 Now K on Foxtel, so a few different avenues there. But the Eels represented across the park, starting with the Blues. They've got Tess McWilliams in the 10, Fontaine Tafua and Riverley Arlaw in the back row on the edge and lock forward there respectively. And then on the interchange...
It's good to see Riverley back because she missed the City game with the concussion, I think.
Real bad concussion from the grand final, yeah. And then in the on the interchange, another pair of Eels, Ava Jones and Kylia Gray. And then on the opposite side of the field, at fullback, so a really exciting position to see her make her rugby league debut, is Flegg. Eels off-season acquisition for the NRLW. Obviously very talented to be playing or being scouted for NRLW as a 19s eligible player. And yeah, we get our first gander at the cross-code convert there. A sort of a transaction, I suppose, a rugby league transaction where the Eels have had some success recently. Rory Owen, of course, being the rookie of the, or should have been the rookie of the year last year. And I imagine Fleggin's going to be beholden to the same restrictions in terms of ROTY eligibility. But no doubt she can still impress the Parramatta Eels. So really exciting times here. Eels with, was it 6 players total? 1 plus 5, I think it was.
Yes.
So huge representation across the 2 teams. And yeah, geez, look, we're excited to see what Flegg can do, obviously, but you look at some of those Eels on the other side of the field, 60s, Tess McWilliams, Riverley Arlaw, Fontaine Tafua. Those 3 were phenomenal for the Parramatta Eels. Kylia Gray, a player whose talent and ability to ball play sort of transcended her position in the middles to the point where she ended up finishing the season at 5/8. And then Ava Jones, a real goer out of dummy half, who was I won't say came to life because she was good throughout the season, but was a big spark plug in the finals and was one of the difference makers for the Eels in a number of key contests there.
Yeah, agree, mate. And it's and I think we're not too far away from the first game. Is it? What time's the kickoff? Is it
5:45? Yeah,
5:45.
We record. It's now 4:28 at my clock on a Thursday. So of course, as you guys listen to this, it'll be in the past. But we are hyping up our girls ahead of kickoff. I promise you. This is.
And now, John, there isn't any team list that have been put out for the trial, has there? I I haven't seen
I had
any.
a quick gander at Power Eels and did not see, because New South Wales Rugby League match center doesn't allow for trials. So if the Eels haven't put one out, it doesn't look like it. Para Eels. I'll type in Twitter, even though it is X. Let's see if there's anything on socials.
I didn't see anything on the Instagram page, so I guess we're gonna work a little bit blind in terms of who we can expect to see in this game. But John, just while you're looking, have a think about this. Who are you most looking forward to seeing in both the Harvey Norman and the NRLW team? Now, for me, the Harvey Norman, it's going to be more to see what players are transitioning into the Harvey Norman from the age pathways, because our pathways go from the under-19s of the Tarsha Gale into what is basically the reserve grade competition of the Harvey Norman women's comp. So for me, it's a matter of seeing who's the familiar faces out there this season running around in the Harvey Norman women's team. And with the NRLW team, I guess I'm interested in the type of football that we're going to play this year. Is it going to be the same as what we saw last year? Are we going to see a development on that? Has Steve Georgalis tweaked anything for the style of football that the Eels are going to play? Look, if we can get the likes of the Cherrington sisters performing in this game, because both of them ended up missing out chunks of last season due to injury, and we saw Kennedy absolutely ripping in State of Origin. What will she actually take part in this, or will she be saved for another trial? Again, without the team list, we don't know. Same for our other Origin representative in Abby Church. What's her stance with this? Is she going to get a game in this, or are they going to rest her? Rory Owen, be great to see her back in action again. She didn't take part in the final Origin game, but she got a taste of representative football to back up her fine season last year. So I'm really keen on watching those trials. Hopefully we can get a team list. It'd be a bit hard calling the game if we don't have the team list, especially with the Harvey Norman competition. But John, anything you want to add to that about those trial games?
Yeah, look, we are sort of subject to not just availability, but whether some talent is still with the club in the Harvey Norman Women's Premiership, because there will be a bit of volatility with the clubs coming in, the Bulldogs and whatnot, poaching players. But looking at the squads last year, the two players that really stand out to me as interesting prospects to monitor this year from HNWP, I suppose is Harvey Norman Women's Premiership, into the NRLW this year would be the two prop forwards in Roche Farmasuli and Lasalio Sitapane, who I thought had some really good play last year, and would be two young, well, bull's not the right word, you don't want to call them cows either, but just two talented middles there. I'm sorry about the slip there, but I'm so used to calling young forwards balls in the male context there. But I look at those two for the Harvey Normans, and then for the NRLW, the player that I will look at returning from injury would be another forward in Boss Kapoor, who we only really got a small glimpse at last year. And I know there's been some other players there that were really exciting, and Chloe Jackson, who I thought was fantastic, 60s as a real energizer in the back row, and how that sort of works there too. But yeah, just Boss Kapoor is such a huge unknown now, because she had a lot of momentum coming into the season, big, powerful edge forward, great prototype there they have in your squad. But I want to see her have a big year starting in the trial.
Yeah, Chloe Jackson in the forwards is the one that I think could be anything, John. Her work rate last year was just right off the charts. she to me is almost like the prototype women's player that you'd like to have in your pack. She's like the direction that the NRL is heading in terms of those high work rate, mobile players. That to me is who she is. Like she's the female version of that.
It's such a
sort of player.
fascinating contrast between Boss Kapua, who is more like that, like, again, not a one-to-one comparison, but more like Kamali Olakauatu, who's the big powerhouse edge forward. And you've got Chloe Jackson, who is more like a Cameron Murray type, that more small, agile, leg speed type of forward. The Eels have got both of them in their pack. How can they best use them? And I think we get our first look at it on the weekend, which is really cool. And yeah, the squad's got a lot of talent in it. And I think isn't it funny how we sort of arrived at the same destination with two different players?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, John, I think that just about wraps up the preview. It's been a massive preview because, in essence, we've touched on not just the 3 Eels men's games, but a couple of those 19s Origin and a couple of women's trials. So, touched on 7 games in this preview. So, if you've stuck with us to the end, thank you so much. Yeah. Again, a reminder, we'll be at Paraleagues at 4:00 on Sunday with our preview of the big match between the Eels and the Titans. So head into Sturlo's, come and say g'day. Thank you again to Paraleagues, the home of the Eels. Thank you to Star Partners Real Estate, Auburn, Narellan and Parramatta for the support of both organisations. Again, another thank you to Jim Sarantinos for appearing on our Tuesday podcast. If you haven't had a listen to that, please go on and do so. And if you wouldn't mind as well, just add a bit of feedback on our website with that with that particular podcast, because we really do appreciate the feedback that people provide. John, only one more thing left to say. Go you mighty Eels.